peso has breached the 53 per dollar level, its weakest in 3.5 years. It closed at 53 pesos and 25 centavos against the greenback today. China Bank Chief Economist Domini Velasquez weighs in if a weaker currency is good or bad. Domini, thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word. What factors have led to this depreciation of the Philippine peso to 53 against the US dollar?
Hi, Rico. The 53 peso, the depreciation of the peso against the US dollar this year, we were actually expecting that. Because when we talk about the currency, we talk about the Philippine peso, we talk about the US dollar. Given the economic recovery of the Philippines, we really expected the Philippine peso to depreciate. We're importing more goods, both capital goods used for BBB, consumer goods such as automobiles, and recently agricultural products. On the side of the US dollar, it's really a stronger US dollar with a hike of the interest rate of the Fed. Also, some financial market turmoils we've seen in the stock market drives investors to safe haven assets such as the US dollar.
So you say we've been importing a lot of products and we're not exporting enough. And this is putting a downward trend on the Philippine peso against the US dollar.
Yes, that's true. We've usually been a net importer, but currently we've seen imports not just in terms of quantity, but price effects. Higher prices of oil, of food in the global markets have driven imports higher. Conversely, if we look at exports, I guess a dimmer outlook in the global economy actually weakens our exports. I think that was April, we saw exports growth of just 6% against imports of 20+%.
So there's an unevenness, no? Particularly in trade. So will this downward trend continue against the US dollar? Domini, are we likely to see 54, 55 in the near to medium term?
We think maybe in Q4, the depreciation of Q3, the depreciation of the peso will likely continue, largely because importers actually stock up on inventories ahead of the holiday season. But Q4, due to seasonality, we see remittances coming in. So likely the US dollar will appreciate, the Philippine peso will appreciate a little bit.
So where do we see the central banks starting to come in to defend the peso against the US dollar? If you see it falling to 54 to 55, are they likely to come in, support it, and even raise interest rates to stabilize and temper the depreciating peso?
In general, the central bank does not actually sort of manage the exchange rate. They usually let market fundamentals, economic fundamentals, decide on the exchange rate. Usually they come in to smoothen some volatilities. But of course, the central bank already hiked by 25 basis points. We expect another 25 basis points in this month and another one in August, as mentioned already by incoming Governor Felipe Medalla, right? So there is some support there, but also really what's driving the peso and US dollar now is really the strength of the US dollar.
So if we see another 0.5% increase in interest rates, will this hurt the Philippines' economic prospects in the second half of the year? Because it will make everything else more expensive and borrowing more expensive.
Yes, that might be true, but BSP is balancing growth recovery and interest rate hikes. So outgoing Governor Jokno has always said that they will not raise interest rates until the economy is on the right foot to recovery. So that's what we saw. We saw an 8.3% Q1 GDP growth, and then we saw them hike by 25 basis points.
And of course, if we see a depreciating peso against the US dollar, this also will hurt our interest payments going forward. We have a huge and massive national debt of close to 13 trillion pesos. How are we going to pay this off if we have also international borrowings and a weaker peso?
Yes, that's true. But the national government's debt is largely made up of domestic debt. So 70% of the government's debt is domestic. Only 30% is external debt. So that will affect the exchange rate.
So what is your outlook for the Philippine peso by year's end, Domini?
Around 53 to 53.5 is good. As I said, in Q3, we might see a little bit of depreciation, but an appreciation in Q4.
Domini Velasquez, thank you so much for your insights on the peso-dollar exchange rate, China Bank's chief economist.